Right, Todd? Why would I even question?
Right back.
So welcome everyone. We are actually organizing ourselves so that everybody, this is not going to be webinar, well, everybody's going to be a panelist. So we set this up as a webinar, and so we want to be sure that everybody can be seen if they wish, be heard if they wish, and but be able to participate fully. So we're, as you're entered, we're going to convert you over to panelist. And Claire is doing that for us. Get going in just a few minutes when the screen populates.
Hello.
Hi there, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. We'll give it one more minute and then we'll start our first meeting of the Broadband Caucus this year. All right, why don't we get going and hope others will join, and Clara will, there's the fearless leader himself, Representative Berry.
Senator Bennett, I thought that was you. That was the fearless leader. I apologize, but I'm having a little trouble transitioning from one meeting to another on my laptop, so I will be switching devices shortly.
That's fine. I'm just about ready to call the meeting to order. We're getting folks coming in, and so let me do that, and then when you're on your other device, you can pipe up. Welcome everyone. It is the first meeting of the Legislature's Broadband Caucus for the second regular session of the 130th Maine Legislature. And our intention is to have these meetings as we've done them in the past year. I think people gave us high marks because we kept them to 1 hour. We kept them moving and we kept them interactive, and tried to get lots of information exchanged in a short period of time. I am Rick Bennett, State Senator over here in Western Maine. I represent 13 towns in Cumberland and Oxford counties, and I am Senator Maxman and Representative Berry and Representative Tom Schofield are the co-chairs of this group. And tonight we have, we're going to be looking at legislation that is we know of, that it was either carried over or introduced for this session, just reviewing that quickly and having a chat about all of that. And we're also going to be talking about our schedule going forward for this session and what all of you would like to see and hear and talk about in future meetings. But we're starting with introductions, and then we're going to have the Maine Broadband Coalition talk to us about their priorities and issues of concern this year. So It looks like we're a relatively small group here, so I'll just go right around and in the order of which I'm seeing people, and ask you to introduce yourselves, both legislators and non-legislators. So Tracy, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Tracy Shekel, and I am here representing the Maine Broadband Coalition, and I am the Government Relations and Public Relations Manager for Otelco, which is a telephone company that serves several areas in Maine with telephone, and we're building fiber as fast as we can.
Great. Clara?
Hello, my name is Clara McCool. I work with the Greater Portland Council of Governments as the Regional Broadband Associate, and part of my role is working with the Maine Broadband Coalition. I'll pass it to Joe.
How's it going, everyone? My name is Joe Oliva. I am serving on the AmeriCorps Resilience Corps cohort in Portland for the Greater Portland Council of Governments, helping out with Maine Broadband Coalition stuff, though, just kind of behind the scenes.
Who are you passing it to?
I'll pass it to.
You're on mute. So I'll just pass it to Representative Cloutier.
Thank you, Senator. I am Kristen Cloutier. I represent House District 60, which is part of Lewiston, and I will pass it to Representative Wood.
Thank you. I'm Representative Barb Wood. I represent House District 38, which is the Western Peninsula in Portland.
And who would you like to pass it to?
All right. Nancy Smith.
Good evening, everyone. I am Executive Director of Grow Smart Maine. I am at home in Poland this evening, and I chair the policy committee for the Broadband Coalition. I'll be talking with you a little later, and I served in the legislature from 2002 to 2010.
And you are passing it to?
Wouldn't you think I could have it down by then? How about Lily Wilson?
Hi, everyone. My name is Lily. I work in Senator Troy Jackson's office as his legislative aide, and am really excited. It's my first time joining into a broadband caucus, so excited to share a little bit about some of what Troy's going on, as well as listen to a lot of what else is going on.
Awesome.
And I'll pass it to Sam Zuckerman. Have you gone yet, Sam?
Not yet. Hi, everyone. I'm Sam Zuckerman. I'm a policy and legal director in the Office of the Senate President. So I'm also happy to be here. And I will pass it to Representative Ziegler.
Thank you. We Z's stick together. I'm Representative Paige Ziegler. I represent District 96 in Waldo County, the 7 towns of Belmont, Liberty, Lincolnville, Montville, Moore, Palermo, and Searsmont. And I'm in the process of doing my dishes because the chair of the EUT just went on a little too long today and I couldn't get all my work done.
And are you passing it to him? And
I always pass the buck to Representative Berry if I can.
Very, very nice segue, Representative Ziegler. And great to be with you all. I am Seth Berry, and I am the House Chair of the Energy, Utilities, and Technology Committee, as well as having been with this great legislative broadband caucus from its inception. I think this is the 3rd legislature where it's been a thing. And we are smaller than usual today, but no doubt mighty. And we look forward to getting into a more routine schedule so that people have more notice and can make sure that it gets on their calendar. And what we hope to talk about today will make you and your perspective especially relevant. So those who missed this meeting are going to be really, really jealous that you were here and they were not. And I'm going to pass it to Fletcher Kittridge to introduce himself.
Hi, this is my first meeting. I'm Fletcher Kittridge. I'm CEO of GWI, which is we design, build, and operate fiber networks.
very good. Well, thank you. So we'll just leap right into our first order of business, which is, after introductions, is Nancy Smith, who's going to give us the policy committee overview of the Maine Broadband Coalition's priorities.
Yes, I wanted to give you a sense of who the Broadband Coalition Policy Committee is and how we make our decisions. If you want to, and we have time, we can dive into other bills specifically, but just as the overview, I'll just note that for Grow Smart Maine, with our work in supporting communities and managing change, as you can imagine, there isn't a more dramatic change across the state than this need for affordable access to broadband. We're all experiencing it, and it intersects with economic development, housing choices, community resiliency. So that's what brings us to the table. And I'm going to share a couple of links with you rather than sharing screen. This first one is a webinar that we did about a year ago called More Broadband, Less Sprawl. How do you manage growth in your community as you are increasing access to broadband? So to the Broadband Coalition Policy Committee, within the coalition, clearly, we focus on state level advocacy with a broad representation of the coalition on the policy committee. We have, I think there's 16 members. We have 4 ISPs, 6 statewide nonprofits, 2 regional development organizations, 1 municipality. We all engage in these conversations. And then we also have 2 people from the administration who offer us background information as we make our decisions. And that's, of course, Connect Maine and the Maine Connectivity Authority. So that's the policy committee. I want to share a second link with you. And I'm not even going to try to do 2 things at once because we know that doesn't go well. On the Maine Broadband Coalition site, with the link that I've given you, you will see the guiding values of the coalition. And these were established to ensure that future broadband expansion across Maine achieves the 3 primary goals: availability, affordability, and accessibility. So as we're considering where we're going to weigh in on bills, these values kind of center us in where to mobilize our resources. The process that we use is generally weekly check-in meetings, and we review and discuss legislation to determine if we're going to engage. And of course, this is fluid throughout the session because, as you know, bills change and evolve during the course of the session. What level of engagement? Is this going to be a full court press? Is it just 1 or 2 people weighing in? Are we simply going to monitor? Those are decisions that are made each week and then updated as things change. And then who best represents the Maine Broadband Coalition with their testimony for each of these bills. So with that process, we're able to, I think, advance the goals within the legislative process. And I want to share 2 more links with you. You can see all of our testimony. And so far it's just for last year. But again, on the website, you can see the Broadband Coalition testimony, and it's organized by bill. And then secondly, one of the things that it was a fascinating process. The second link that I'm putting in is the value propositions for each legislative committee. We tend to testify in front of, energy, utilities, and technology or appropriations, but honestly, to be able to talk about why this is relevant to ag conservation and forestry, and why is it relevant to the IDEA committee or state and local government. So in that second link, there's a value proposition for whatever committee you serve on, so that you can see the connections that we saw between broadband and your committee of jurisdiction. So that's the overview that I had planned for this evening. And I'm eager to go with you through the list of bills that are on the agenda for tonight and gather the perceptions and the information that you've got, and hoping that we're all working to advance broadband access across Maine. And happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Nancy? at the present time. She'll be engaged in our conversation if not. But thank you for sharing those links. It's really great, Nancy, and thank you for your presentation.
Very well.
I'm happy now to turn the gavel, the metaphorical gavel, over to my co-chair, Representative Berry.
Well, thanks, Senator Bennett, for doing the easy part. And I will now introduce the rest of the agenda. What we would like to do today is review some pending legislation that is before the second regular session of the 130th Maine Legislature, and seek the recommendations, perhaps by consensus, but if not, then we can certainly take a vote of those assembled here today as members of the Broadband Caucus. And just a note to Clara and to Tracy, who are very ably working with us and helping us to plan. I think it might be useful to go back and look at who attended, at least a couple meetings in the previous session, the first regular session last winter, and perhaps run these bills by them. And we can consider today's feedback advisory, because I think we don't have enough to call it a quorum at this meeting. So perhaps with some follow-up in the form of an email, recommendations from this group, we can kind of go from there. Take a quick poll of the rest of the Broadband Caucus who was unable to make it today.
Probably a good idea to send them the recording of this as well. So it's
great idea. Great idea. So there are a few bills that we had singled out for review today. The first of those, I just posted a link to it in the chat, so you can bring that up. That is pertaining to satellite-based broadband. There's a bond issue proposal that is before the Appropriations Committee, and there are a couple bills before EUT, my committee, and last but not least, LD 80, which is before the Taxation Committee and would also end up going through the appropriations process if it is passed by the House and Senate. So a couple for EUT, a couple for appropriations. It's good to see AFA members here. I guess they're all in those committees. The first of them, and we're going to try to just briefly review each, and did invite the sponsors, but I think in many cases they were unable to make it. So I think Senator Bennett or I can just give you a very brief overview. But we all are very good at using those links and reviewing the summary of a bill and the public hearing testimony. I think that to represent Senator Trey Stewart, the sponsor of this bill, adequately will be challenging, but he does come from a very rural area and is very interested in low Earth orbit satellite, which is it's really something that is coming from one particular business, Elon Musk's outfit, and he would like, with this bill, to see the state of Maine providing an incentive for low Earth orbit satellite uptake, and the amount would be $1 million in the upcoming fiscal year, with up to $500 for individuals for installation costs, and I guess no more than $1 million total.
If I just might, Chair Seth, I did speak with Trey Stewart, who's the sponsor, and he regrets that he wasn't able to attend, but he would like to come to a future meeting and talk about his idea directly, which I think would be great. You're muted.
Thank you. So Senator, do you think that it would be wise then to just table this item rather than trying to vote on it without the sponsor being present? I mean, I don't think we have sponsors for most of these, so that's where we'll end up with all of them, I'm afraid, if we.
Right. Well, we do have President Jackson has two people here that might.
That is true.
To discuss his legislation.
And I'm prepared to discuss LD 80, which is David McRae's bill. So I guess we could
talk about 12 to 35 since that is jointly sponsored by the.
All right. Well, I think it is certainly the sponsors. It's helpful if the sponsor can be present. I don't think there's any harm in putting this off, except that if the caucus were to really want to support something, a delay might negatively impact a bill. But I guess that's up to the sponsor. So, without any objection, I think we can move on from this. If people have any clarifying questions or want to know more about the bill, perhaps you want to contact Senator Stewart in the interim, and we can move beyond it. But certainly be aware of that. It is something that my committee will be voting on soon, and appreciate any feedback that you, as a member of this caucus or the Maine Broadband Coalition, might have. Okay, so seeing no objection, why don't we move right along then to another bill where we can actually hear from a sponsor. And Senator Bennett, you're next on the list with the bond issue to connect Maine with a world-class internet infrastructure. I'll just throw that up in the chat, and can you give us a quick overview?
Sure. This bill was introduced last year, was carried over by the Appropriations Committee. It was a companion bill to the other bill, which was enacted and created the Maine Connectivity Authority. The idea was that we needed to start a very aggressive schedule of building internet into every nook and cranny of Maine, all the underserved or unserved areas of Maine, and so that we could have digital inclusion and we could have a thriving economy and rural health and great remote education and all of the things that broadband means to us. This bill would have provided funding and will provide funding. It's enacted of $100 million as it's currently drafted, a $100 million bond. Now, I think in the present environment, there's huge state surplus of $822 million. There's unknown amounts of federal money. We know some of it, we don't know all of it. We know that at least $150 million has been put into the Maine Connectivity Authority, and from federal funds, and maybe more will follow. More is expected to follow. So the question about this bill is whether we should move forward with it. If we move forward with it, it doesn't have to be a bond. It could be converted into something in the supplemental budget. It could be converted into a direct appropriation. There are different ways of doing this. I do think the bonding instruments are probably not going to be used a lot this year. And it probably would be better if we want to move forward with state funding into the Maine Connectivity Authority or other ways of helping improve our infrastructure for internet. There are different ways of doing it, and I'm open to all of that. And I think it would be actually a really good project for the Maine Broadband Caucus to have a conversation, if not tonight, then maybe at our next meeting, and think about this question of next steps. But that's what the bill does. It was carried over specifically because there was unknown at the time how much money was coming from the feds and how it would be deployed and what instrumentality it should be deployed through. And now we have the Maine Connectivity Authority up and going and starting their work. And the question is, should we provide state funding in addition to what they have.
And just as a reminder, the caucus did adopt a position of support for this bill last year. I recall that members of appropriations, since they had to vote on it, and appropriations abstained from that vote. But there seemed to be strong support within the caucus for this particular measure. I think, as Senator Bennett, as you suggested, things have evolved a bit. And to me, the question that it begs is what is the state's ongoing commitment to broadband? Because we know that the federal money will do a lot, but we also know that it won't get us all the way there. So if our commitment as a state is to get all the way there, and what are we doing to lift up our own, to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps? What are we doing to draw down more match from private sector contributions, because the private sector always does part of it, from municipalities and counties who right now have a lot of money, but they have always been partners in this effort, and also from the federal government. So I think that's the question that I'm left with right now is are we committed to getting all the way there? And if so, what are we doing as a state? Because right now we're just spending one-time money that came to us, and we shouldn't pretend that we're doing anything more than that. And we're not getting all the way there, and we need to be clear on that too. So what is our long-term commitment? What is our state commitment and can we walk that walk? And I'm curious if the Maine Broadband Coalition has any perspective to add on what I just said, on is there a position from the Maine Broadband Coalition? And I'll throw that to Nancy.
No, thank you. Our position was to check in with the caucus and see that you all we see the same thing that you do. This was a priority bill for us last year. The coalition was very happy to work with Senator Bennett on this, but things have changed dramatically. We don't know. I think the sense in some of our conversations has been, leave this where it is. It's sitting on the special appropriations table while we wait to see what's happening with federal funding, particularly what kind of matches are going to be required and what unmet needs based on the criteria of federal funding. So this is one where I think the conversations we've had so far have been wait and see and watch how things evolve. It's safe where it is sitting there until we get more information.
Got it. Is there other discussion on this item? Do people have questions or comments? I would just remark that waiting and seeing is fine for the purpose of waiting and seeing, I guess. And it's just that, as you know, Nancy, as a former member of the legislature, the second regular session moves very quickly, and it will mean that the next legislature will have to pick it up and probably start from scratch if we wait and see for much longer.
We need wait and see during this session. So waiting and seeing in January is good. February is maybe where things start to percolate and move along. Okay. So yeah, clearly with the intention of making a decision this session, but more information may be coming.
Great. Representative Cloutier.
So I'm just wondering if anyone has had any conversations with the governor's office about whether broadband, I guess, more broadly is maybe a part of her supplemental budget.
That is a great question. And if anyone wants to chime in with answers, that would be terrific.
All I can tell you is legislators, you have a different avenue of access than we do. But on another matter, I was talking with another state agency, and we're not going to learn what's in there until the governor's state of the state and the budget is released. They're working on things behind the scenes, but at least officially, it's all very quiet until then. Has the state date been set yet?
It's the 10th, right? Yeah. The 10th at 7. And I, You would think that we have a different access than you do, but that is not always true. Said the person on AFA who also does not know what is in the supplemental budget.
Good, thank you. That's a helpful update, Representative Cloutier. And I think it's also fair to, it's also my understanding that the supplemental budget may not be rolled out until after the state of the state. Representative Dodge.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, it's been a wild day. And I'm fighting technology issues, so please just let if you can't hear me, I'm on the trusty phone. Do we know and should we investigate the level of commitment and the lock-in level for county investment? Is there a possibility that we're going to find that there are some counties who are doing some investing here and some who are not, who then we're going to have a whole nother level of how do we address those inequities if they arise? Has that been discussed? And I apologize for my tardiness.
So are you referring to the money that counties currently have, which can be spent on broadband infrastructure, but it could also be spent on water, wastewater, other things, and the status of that money? I think it is a county by county decision, but perhaps someone from the Maine Broadband Coalition wants to take a crack at this. I know there have been efforts to generate conversations at the county level about what is possible and to make sure that those possibilities are in front of county commissioners wherever possible. And I do think it varies, right? Every county has its own flavor and its own set of priorities. So does anyone from the Broadband Coalition want to chime in on this one? Okay. I will say also that our Maine Connectivity Authority with Tim Schneider, who visited this Broadband Caucus and gave some great presentations on pole attachments, which you may recall last year. He is the president of the Maine Connectivity Authority now, also former public advocate. And Andrew Butcher, who ran this caucus with us and served in the position that Clara is now in, was nominated and confirmed by the legislature to be the director of the Maine Connectivity. Excuse me, he's the president, and Tim Schneider is the board chair. So we have a crackerjack team at the wheel, and they are definitely aware of those county monies and municipal monies, and are looking to maximize the match. But I think it really is a county by county, town by town effort. Does that help, Representative Dodge? I'm not sure I answered your question.
Well, I sort of, but again, are we going to try to address any inequities that come up so that we can say when we're done, we've leveled the playing field for the citizens of the state of Maine? Does that clarification help?
Thank you. Yes, it does. And I do think that the Maine Connectivity Authority, along with the sort of original effort, the Connect Maine Authority, it very much works on the basis of equity. In other words, where's the greatest need? And that's one lens, right? And another lens is where's the greatest opportunity? And oftentimes those things go together, because if you have a very rural area with a lot of need, then it actually you have better uptake, and it's easier to serve that area. And there's also a greater will to get something done, right? So I think equity is very much a part of the lens, and I think it's baked into the mission of the Maine Connectivity Authority as we created it with Senator Bennett's bill and with the governor's leadership. And so I do have full faith and confidence, speaking just for myself here, that they are absolutely doing everything to maximize the equity in that spend. Do others want to chime in? It's certainly an important question. And Senator Bennett, this is your bill. Are you looking for us to provide an updated position on it? Do you think that it would be best to talk about some of the other bills and come back to it? What's your preference?
Yeah, I don't know if it's right for this evening. It's pretty straightforward in its approach. The question is pretty straightforward, as you put it very eloquently. I mean, this is, you know, are we only going to spend money from Uncle Joe on our broadband? And you know, what is the need? Well, you know, the need is expressed in the plan from 3 years ago, I think it was now, suggested that we had a $600 million need. Well, we're making some strong progress toward that, but you know, if that number is correct, we still aren't reaching it with the money that we know and hope for in additional appropriations from the feds. So, and what we have gotten ourselves in a great position, just I think, to spend it well with the Maine Connectivity Authority. So I would like to have. I think it would be best to just defer on this for tonight, but bring it back up at our next meeting. And in the meantime, we probably have more information, maybe more information about the governor's budget, maybe more information about you know, how the Maine Connectivity Authority is rolling out their investments, and that would be useful, I think, as we make a determination on how much and how, and those sorts of questions with respect to this.
That sounds great. So let's move on. Unless there's objection, I'm going to just consider that item tabled for now. And without further change in the caucus's position. And the next bill that we wanted to just bring the caucus's attention to, and I just put this one in the chat, has yet to have a hearing. It's a new bill from Senator Vitelli, LD 1894. It is scheduled for public hearing on February 3rd at 9 a.m. in the EUT committee. And the bill would allow electric cooperatives and municipal electric utilities to build broadband infrastructure themselves. And I think it'll be an interesting discussion. I believe some of them already have that capacity, but it also creates a fund which allows money to be directed towards that kind of effort. So I encourage people to tune in if you're interested in that topic, and maybe that's something that your community would want to take advantage of. I think in the interest of time, it might be wise to just discuss this briefly if people have questions about it, and then perhaps not take too deep a position on it, because I want to get to the other two bills that we want to discuss today. And we only have about 23 minutes left. So Sam Zuckerman, were you here to discuss that bill?
I'm not here to discuss it, but I did want to provide an update. I know that Senator Vitelli is working on an amendment to this bill that I believe changes it a bit, because there is already a fund that exists in law that is that has never been funded, but that essentially was intended to serve this kind of purpose. So I know that she's reworking it so that it does something that hasn't already been done.
Got it. The Municipal Gigabit Fund, I believe.
Yep.
Representative Norm Higgins. Okay, that's great. So we're looking forward to that, and we'll keep the caucus updated on the progress of that bill.
Yeah, and I'm happy to talk about it in the future. Just I haven't checked in with Senator Vitelli about it, so I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware.
Fantastic. Representative Ziegler.
Yes, I'm meeting with a group tomorrow in Searsmont, and also I just got some emails from Liberty, and this is a big issue. And how does the senator, where's that money going to come from? Okay, you have something that's been unfunded, and that's not unusual. And we're looking at a year that probably there will be no bonding, and it's a political year. It's an election year. So do you think that there is And how much do you think that the senator wants? This is important to my area, this particular bill, because there's a lot of small towns that want to do this.
Sam, do you want to take that one? Or if not, we can ask the senator.
I think that that's one of the things that is still being worked on, just because, finding sources for funding is always difficult, especially in a short session. So I know that, the senator is actively working on that, but I don't think that's been determined yet.
Great. Okay, well, we'll stay tuned for the hearing. Join us if you like in the EUT committee on the date of the hearing. And up next, we have Senator Jackson's bill regarding the Caribou Utilities District. And Lily, is it Sam or Lily that is going to talk about this one with us?
I'll be talking about this one, but I'm sure Sam can offer potentially some additional input. But kind of been working with Hugh Kirkpatrick, who is the Caribou Utilities District Manager. He's a general manager up there and has been working on this project for a number of years, and is kind of now at a stage where it's ready to be brought to the legislature on the state level. So 2275 is an act to amend the Caribou Utilities District Charter to include broadband services. And obviously reiterating what everyone has already been saying about how critical these kinds of expansions are to creating equity in digital access across the state. That is certainly true in Caribou and throughout Aroostook County. So really excited to be putting forth this bill that could serve as a model from a district. And credit to Hugh, someone who's as an individual is incredibly dedicated to making sure that access is delivered on the municipal level. So they have a lot laid out. I'm happy to answer more questions, but it's a fairly straightforward bill in and of itself. It's just making sure that Caribou Utilities does have the authority in statute to offer broadband. And there's a lot of advantages there. They have a lot of existing infrastructure. They have the skill. They don't need additional personnel in their office, and have, a series of billings and customer client relations set up. So there is a lot of advantage there, as well as they already serve many of the areas that we most in need. So the school district, Cary Medical, a number of other kind of broader community and regional assets that could potentially benefit substantially from having the sort of dependable broadband access that this bill would bring to the Caribou area. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Lily. So I did post the title. We look forward to it being printed with an LD number and probably scheduled in the EUT committee in a date coming soon. And are there questions for Lily? Okay. Well, really appreciate you representing the Senate President and giving us the heads up about this bill. Sounds exciting.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Feel free to stick around if you like. And last but not least, we have LD 80. This bill is in the Taxation Committee, and it is sponsored by Representative McCray. We did discuss it last year, but just as a reminder, the purpose of this bill would be to keep us moving forward with a state level commitment. And just as historic context, we've typically allocated about $1 million per year for broadband up until this, game-changing federal money came along. And that continues to be sort of the statutory commitment from the state of Maine, is about $1 million per year. So that's, if you think of it as $1 per Mainer per year, give or take, that's kind of our overall effort. Definitely not enough to get us there. And we're going to need to consider ways to up our game. So this bill is the only one that I know of that would dedicate an ongoing revenue stream to sustain, to increase that effort, that state effort, and sustain it over time. And the mechanism as proposed in the bill would be to dedicate, and I've got to bring back my tax committee brain from long ago when I served there. 33% of the revenues from marketplace facilitators. It's like if you think of Amazon affiliates, it's essentially online sales. And we need a tax committee member to help, define that better than I just did. But online sales is kind of a new form of revenue. We've had to really claw our way into actually bringing that money in. It was not easy, but we are now seeing some money coming in from online sales, as I understand it. And this would just set aside 33%. So online activity, specifically online commercial activity, would produce a revenue stream that we could sustain over time, and that we could use in a sustainable way for our broadband effort. So I think it's a unique bill in that regard. It is the only bill, again, that I know of that would actually create that ongoing funding mechanism. And, I think that what the sponsor would like to see, Representative McCray, from my conversations with him, is that we enact this bill, begin the funding stream in this second year, the second fiscal year of the biennial budget, as part of the supplemental. And maybe have a sunset in 10 years or so, with a review. Are we there yet? Did we cover the whole state, or at least everybody that can reasonably covered? Did we use it to draw down a lot of great match money from other sources? Hopefully yes. And if we're there, then it goes away, right? It doesn't need to continue to exist once everybody has access to high-speed internet. So I think it's an exciting bill. Maybe you can tell from my description of it. It's kind of a sleeper, and I do think that the taxation committee could potentially use it to create an ongoing stream of revenue. But I want to see what others think. Any discussion, and then we can decide whether we want to take a formal position or wait for our next meeting.
Yeah, it would be interesting for me to know exactly how much money this would be raising.
Mm-hmm.
Because it might be a good thing to do. I just don't. It would be nice to know that piece of information. I don't know if this. Where does it stand now, Seth? Is a fiscal note been prepared yet, or is it too early for that?
The status in committee is that it has not yet been voted. It was just carried over. And I think that, Kristen, you've been on tax, maybe others have as well. I think the fiscal note is often not prepared until it's actually voted. Is that right?
Yes, too
Yes.
often.
Yeah. Which is kind of frustrating, right? Not to know beforehand, but there we are. We maybe in the testimony, someone will pull up an estimate of what that would bring in. Representative Dodge.
Just to continue that sort of line of question, not only how much money is in the fund right now, but to what has it been allocated in this last, it's only been actually in effect, is it 1 year or maybe 2? And so who has already received money from that and may be expecting money in the future as part of our planning to specify that a third of that would go in this way?
I'm
sorry, I was distracted looking for the fiscal impact. Rick, did you catch that? You want to take a stab at it?
I'm just looking at the bill itself, and it looks like it's, all the money goes in the general fund. This is a sales and use tax revenue source that goes into the general fund, and the bill would take 1/3 of that out and put it in this special fund. So I'm thinking that it is just based on the reading of it, it looks like it would be money out of the general fund effectively, but a dedicated stream that would go to this purpose.
So Representative Dodge, do you want to elaborate?
I just wonder if in this, so there have not been any distributions or assignments made for the use of this money at this point. Is that correct? Other than this 1/3 use for us, for broadband?
Good. So right now it does go to the general fund. So that money is used as part of our overall budget. And I think it is important that we consider any money this would not be new money. It would set aside money that is currently coming in. Although as online sales grow, that does become new revenue in a sense. But essentially, yes, you're dedicating a certain portion of state revenues to that, and therefore it can't be used for other purposes. So that's a value judgment. Tracy.
Back in November of 19, WGME reported that the Maine state budget is sitting on a surplus to the tune of $30 million. Most of the money comes from the law requiring online retailers like Amazon, blah, 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 to collect. So that's what it was in 2019.
That sounds about right. And I think that so ballpark we'd be looking at maybe 10 million a year. But I think it's a moving target, and the surplus might not be an annual amount so much as an amount at the moment. It's coming back to me a little bit that 10 million might have been the figure that was being talked about at the time. So, if the scope of the problem is 600 million and we have 250 right now from the federal government, 10 million a year might someday get us there, right? But right now, and I'm interested in hearing from Nancy or Fletcher or others in the industry. Is 600 the number, the minimum that would be required to get us there, or is it actually more than that? I think we have 250 from the federal government, correct?
Yeah. Well, Tracy, you want to go first?
No, I'll let you go.
Okay.
It's more. It's more.
Okay, that's interesting. I'd say that 600 would, my guess is it would be sufficient. And the reason for that is these networks generate revenue. People are used to paying a monthly fee, and it is getting increasingly easy to raise, based on that, to raise money. And it's not all the money is going to have to come from the federal government. There are other ways to do it. So, but this is obviously a matter of opinion, and I could very well be wrong.
Well, I'll take my turn now. In areas where the population is denser, it's easier to build. And so if you're looking at an area where you have less than 10 locations per mile, you have to kind of factor that into the whole thing. That's a really expensive place to build. And no matter if every person on that line took the service, you're still going to be operating in the red to build there. So I think it's going to cost more to get there. And there's probably going to need to be some kind of further incentive if a provider is working out in really rural areas where you can't balance it with a denser population center as far as spreading out the cost and profit. So we think it's more. So
this is really helpful to people who are, working on it, to, just give us a sense of scale. But what we know is that we have about 250 coming from the federal government, and that is at best, it is less than half of what's needed to get us there. So this is the question that LD 80 and LD 1295, Senator Bennett's bond bill, poses to me, and I think to all of us at the caucus is, do we want to make a state effort financially, or do we just want to spend the money from the federal government? And I think we need to really take a good hard look at ourselves in that regard and make a choice. So I will leave it there. I don't think that it makes sense for us with this small group to probably vote on this bill either, but we should definitely come back to this issue. And I would encourage people to think and do some additional research of your own on what can be done, and have some conversations. Do you want to try to move on this in this session? Do you think it's important? Certainly let us know as the chairs what your thoughts are. You can be in touch with us afterwards. Senator Bennett, in wrapping up this portion of the review of legislation, I think that was all we had. And are there other things you hope to accomplish with that portion of today?
Not for me. I think it's been a really helpful memory jog to some of the issues that we dealt with last year, but also the ones that are teed up. And this I think this question that you pose is just the right one. It's like about the state commitment. What is it going to take to get the job done? What portion should we expect the state or some public authorities to participate in? And then and where we can expect others. In addition to the direct appropriations for this purpose, there are also a whole alphabet soup of state, other federal monies still out there. There's RDOFs, and which I think there's still so many billions of dollars to allocate out of that. The state of Maine got about 70 billion in I think it was a Dutch auction, 70 million, I'm sorry, in the Dutch auction that they did a couple of a year ago. So I think there's a lot going on. There's a lot of energy here. Some money's coming through the NTIA, some money coming through agriculture. I mean, there's the usual assembly of potentiality there. And it's a good question, though, about, how do we make sure Mainers are looked after?
So with that, Senator Bennett, we just have 3 minutes left or so. What I'd most like to hear from people just quickly, and it could be in the chat or with a quick go around, is what's one thing that you hope the Broadband Caucus will either discuss or perhaps accomplish in the very short session that we have in front of us? Really just a couple months left to make some really big decisions. And I just want to do that with a quick go around, and I want to start with legislators. Something you hope to discuss or accomplish with the Broadband Caucus, and I think we'll probably try to meet. Depending on what we hear right now, we'll try to meet. As often as every couple weeks, or it might be a little less, depending on the need. So, who's my first victim? Who wants to start? Representative Dodge is always ready. Do you have, what's one thing you want to talk about or accomplish?
Thank you, Ms. I want to have the ammunition to sell it, to convince Mainers that we are going to, yes, indeed, follow through with a state commitment, and to be able to sell it to any naysayers who say we've already got a flood of money. What the heck are you talking about? Please and thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Representative Cloutier.
Thank you, Rep. Berry. I just want to know, I want to know how all of the pieces fit together. So, Representative Dodge talked about the county, and that reminded me that I'm I have been thinking about that. And then the municipal money, and then the state money, and then the federal money, and how we can sort of all piece those things together, because I feel like, some of our counties, I know mine got this huge influx of cash that they like literally have no idea how to spend. Like they've never seen money like that before. But also we're like, well, the state's getting money from the feds and the municipalities are getting money. And so maybe we don't need to spend this on that. And so I guess how we can advocate at all of those levels to use that money most effectively across the state. That makes sense.
It sure does. Yes. And perhaps we can have an update at some point from the Maine Connectivity Authority on their important work. That might help.
Just that.
Yeah. Representative Ziegler, something you want to talk about or accomplish?
First of all, I think the caucus needs to really push this to be a bipartisan issue. We're not going to get very far with that. And I agree in regards to there's this huge, almost anarchical structure in my, I have towns that are going against or forming units, and other towns are forming units. And I don't feel there's an overall structure. I know that Senator Bennett's bill, but going forward, I think it's great. We're going to have a lot of money in, and we really have to have a structure and a plan, a good one. And our county did not do well with the money. They turned it over to the towns, and it was a mess. We could have used that money, as a bundle to work on this, and it was just dissipated, which was a shame.
That is too bad. Well, this has been helpful. I see Representative Arford maybe on the line, but I think it may be her husband filling in for her. Poppy or Lauren, do you want to chime in?
Okay, it is Lauren. Thank you very much. The funding and how it gets distributed, my concern is how many big electric and cable and fiber and also the Verizons of the world, every one of those people is going to be after this, and it's going to be difficult to. What I liked about this in the past is you were saying, municipality, get on board, do the work, and several have. And I do like that approach because it leads to long-term cost-effective operation.
That's great. Thank you. And I know that the work continues to be very locally grounded. And in the new approach taken by the Maine Connectivity Authority, as it always was during the work of the Connect Maine Authority as well. So we do have that going for us. And it's nice to hear from you, Lauren. Say hi to Poppy for us. That's all the legislators, and that's all the time we really have. So I think, to respect everyone's time, we want to end it here, but we will take this back to the planning committee and think about the next caucus. We want to know the best time of day that will work for you and time of week. We're thinking maybe every other Wednesday afternoon, the days that the Children's Caucus are not meeting might work. I see some nodding heads. That's good. So stay tuned on dates, but it may not be Thursdays at 5 p.m. And we're looking for a time, obviously, that people can make and fit into their very, very busy legislative lives. So with that, thanks, everyone. Thank you to the Maine Broadband Coalition. Thank you, Senator Bennett. Anything you want to chime in with?
Just thank you for doing all the heavy lifting. It's your punishment for showing up late.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, you take the next one. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Great to see you all.
Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.